Good morning to everyone. It's very nice to be back here in Manila, seeing old friends, and of course, my dear friend, Ambassador Albert Del Rosario, the chairman of the ADR Institute in Stratbase, and of course, Professor Castro, and my good friend, former U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines, Harry Thomas. Thank you very much for being here. And to all of you, good morning. Well, I didn't expect, to be honest about it, to be asked to go back to Washington. I've been in exile for quite some time now, so this is another round of being away, but if it's something that I can do for the country, I certainly will not hesitate to do so. And I'd like to thank Professor Manhit for inviting me today to give you my views on redefining the theme today's forum on redefining maritime cooperation in the Indo-Pacific in the age of uncertainty. Again, thank you to Stratbase ADR Institute for inviting me today with the esteemed colleagues from the diplomatic community, distinguished members of the academe, and notable experts who will be discussing the complex issues surrounding the Indo-Pacific. A few months back, I was at the book launching in Washington at the Willard Hotel of The Avoidable War, which is the dangers of a catastrophic conflict between the United States and Xi Jinping's China. This was written by former Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, who has become a good friend of ours. The patrons-only event hosted by the Asia Society had diplomats and senior officials of the U.S. government who were interested in listening to the insights presented in the book that the author says he wished he did not have to write. According to Mr. Rudd, the 2020s will be the decade of living dangerously in the light of changing the balance of power that is emerging between two nations. The argument of this book is that our best chance of avoiding war is to better understand the other side's strategic thinking and to conceptualize a world where both the United States and China are able to competitively coexist, even if in the state of continuing rivalry reinforced by mutual deterrence, he asserted. Obviously, the thought of the two behemoths, the United States and China, on a possible collision course that could lead to a war is far too disquieting, to say the least. There is no doubt about the great uncertainty that continues to hover over the Indo-Pacific region to this very day, with the great powers' rivalry threatening the drivers of regional and global economic growth, upon which millions and millions of people depend on their lives and livelihood. The shifting ideas of geopolitics, the sustained tensions over competing claims, and the converging interests in the political, economic, military, and maritime domain could create flashpoints for security issues and conflict. However, there is always the option of strategic restraint, and there are many benefits to an open and rules-based regional architecture that could constrain one country from its incessant drive to prevail upon another. In this environment of heightened tension and competition, there is an opportunity for the Philippines to play a pivotal role in fostering cooperation among like-minded states, foremost among them the ASEAN member nations, to promote a free and open Indo-Pacific. I do subscribe to that idea of the ASEAN centrality, with the regional bloc having emerged as a significant player on the global stage, considering its huge population of over 680 million people, according to estimates by the United Nations, and a combined GDP of 3.2 trillion in 2019, making it the fifth largest economy in the world. The ASEAN has adopted an Indo-Pacific outlook that defines the Indo-Pacific as a region not of rivalry, but of dialogue, cooperation, development, and prosperity, highlighting the importance of maritime domain while laying down areas of cooperation. The Philippines is fully supportive of these principles and ideals outlined by the ASEAN, which is why we are trying to abide by that dictum, friend to all and enemy to none, as we pursue an independent foreign policy while also recognizing the need to reach out to major countries all over the world. That being said, the position of the Philippines regarding the South China Sea is clear. We want to solve issues peacefully and in keeping with international law. The 2016 Arbitral Tribunal ruling, whose 6th anniversary we're also commemorating, continues to stand as a significant victory for the Philippines and the international community for the primary reason that the decision is underpinned by the rule of law. President Marcos Jr. himself has recognized the significance of the 2016 arbitral ruling, saying it is not a claim but a territorial right, even going as far as saying that we will not allow a single square millimeter of maritime rights to be trampled upon. This was, of course, echoed by our Department of National Defense OIC, Jose Faustino Jr., who said that the focus will be protecting and defending the national sovereignty of our country and ensuring the implementation of the President's order that not a single square millimeter of our territory is surrendered. To this end, AFB modernization efforts will continue to build a more reliable and credible armed forces of the Philippines in strengthening our territorial or external defense capability. As you probably are aware, we have just concluded a 2 to 3 year negotiation on the Subic Bay shipyard. The Cerebus, which is the financial company in the United States, together with the U.S. Navy and our Navy, are now operating the shipyard in Subic. This will, of course, help our defense capabilities in the territorial waters. To maximize the inherent maritime potential of the Philippines, we must leverage existing strategic partnerships and build on alliances with like-minded states to defend our territorial integrity and contribute to the international effort to promote a free and open Indo-Pacific, prevent maritime terrorism, and counter illegal activities, including the exploitation of the natural resources within the country's exclusive economic zone. Many policy experts and analysts have pointed out to China as a major issue that the new administration must deal with. As Professor Rene de Castro put it, China and the maritime dispute in the South China Sea remain to be the biggest foreign policy challenge for the Philippines, especially in the light of our neighbors' growing assertiveness. In fact, I urge you to also reading the book, The Long War, which was written by Rush Doshi, who is now at the National Security Council at the White House. And you can give you an idea of how the American U.S. foreign policy is towards China. We remain optimistic that the best way forward is still diplomacy. Nevertheless, we are prepared to deter or deter aggression, and we believe in the merit of finishing negotiations on a code of conduct in the South China Sea that claimant states, including China, must agree on. All parties of stakeholders must support this process and exercise restraint and cooperation to prevent tensions from escalating further. As pointed out by Professor Manhit, our foreign and security policies must not only be clear and cohesive, they must also be adaptive and resilient to potential threats driven by national interest. Having said that, I continue to hope that the contentious issues surrounding the Indo-Pacific would be resolved in a peaceful manner, even as we adopt the independent foreign policy that allows us to engage in mutual defense or the beneficial relationships that uphold common strategic interests based on the recognition that each nation's sovereignty is indisputable. Certainly, we must not forget what is happening today in Europe with the war in Ukraine. And certainly, we don't want that to happen in our part of the world. Thank you and good morning.